What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel Anime Fiction. I'm back with another episode of What If Naruto Was the Emperor of the Universe Part 2. And if you did enjoy the video, give this video a like for the next part. And if you're new to my channel and like my content, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more crossover fictions. Now let's begin this new video.
Chapter 4. The other Naruto took a different path and landed on the outskirts of Gotham City. The signal came from a modest apartment complex. There was nothing noteworthy about the location. Normal people lived there and such, but unfortunately for the target, the life force did not lie. Naruto shrunk to a little size and slipped through the gap created by the window. The flat was not large, but it was enough for a low-income individual. It was in use, and there were celebrity posters and a vast library of movies on display. His target appeared to be an ordinary man with black hair and brown eyes. The man was sitting on the couch, watching Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Nobody could guess the target's affiliation because the entire scene appeared normal. Naruto looked in his surroundings before taking down the target without hesitation. When his hand contacted the target, seals engulfed him, immobilizing him. Naruto then looked him in the eyes and led him into the world of illusions. Naruto didn't want to alert anyone in the least. People in the city were tense, and things might quickly escalate. Talking was good and dandy, but Naruto preferred to investigate a person's past before engaging in discussion. He had been educated not to enter a situation while being ignorant. Always keep one step ahead of the competition. People should never completely know you, but you should always know them. Naruto invaded his memory without hesitation, and the victim offered no resistance. Clayface, actual name Basil Karlo, was there. Basil Karlo was the son of Vincent Karlo, who created cosmetics and movie masks. Vincent revealed to Basil that the secret to his success was a peculiar putty called Renu, which, when applied to a surface, allowed the sculptor to mold the material into any shape they desired. Renu was proven to be hazardous to human flesh and might potentially cause ailments, therefore Vincent was sacked by his producing firm. 20 years later, Basil grew up and became an actor. Because of his talent and attractive appearance, he rapidly became extremely successful. Glory Griffin, his PA, met him on the set of his film Metamorphosis. For the film. When the film was finished, Basil gained widespread critical acclaim and planned to move on to another project called Second Skin, which reminded him of his father's former career. Glory became Basil's personal assistant for all of his films after Metamorphosis. He quickly had an interview with the casting director for a second skin and was cast as the lead. Basil received a phone call while driving back to his flat notifying him that his father had been found dead. The shock of this revelation forced Basil to smash his car, leaving him disfigured. In a desperate attempt to save his profession, he began abusing Renu in order to maintain his attractive appearance. When his supply ran out, Karlo planned to steal a big quantity of the chemical from the Gotham City production plant, only to be arrested by Batman. Karlo's horrific appearance was later disclosed to the world in news coverage of the incident after he was taken to the hospital to recover. His career had been shattered, and his lover Glory had left him. Karlo was visited in the hospital by Batman, who told him he had a choice in who he wanted to be. Karlo made a bad decision by attempting to break into the warehouse where the cops were keeping his stolen Renu stash. When police opened fire on the vials, Karlo was soaked with the chemical, transforming him into the horrific Clayface, who could transform into anyone and control his body to become anything. He then attacked the set of the film from which he had been dismissed, but was stopped by Batman. He jumped into the sewer of crime the next day and became a true monster. He has collaborated with all of Gotham's major villains, destroying countless lives. He had even ruined the life of the woman who had abandoned him. He'd soaked her in the same chemical, transforming her into an abomination. She, unlike him, was unable to regulate her appearance and become human. She appeared utterly nasty, and most people would vomit if they saw her. He abandoned the woman and resumed his illicit activities. He has recently been engaged to Poison Ivy as her strong man and spouse. That had not gone well, and they were vanquished. She abandoned him, like she had abandoned everyone else. Pam didn't care about others and saw them solely as pawns. She only had a passing acquaintance with Harley. With that failure, Karlo was apprehended but escaped due to an attack on the prison. He'd been hiding and staying low since then, unsure of where he should go next. His hatred for Batman was intense, and he was unable to move on until the bat was killed. That object was to blame for his entire existence collapsing. Naruto approached the man after reading the recollections. Karlo hadn't realized they were in an illusion until they were inside the flat. He was tied to the wall and unable to move or modify his position. He was taken aback by what was going on. He had just finished watching a movie when he found himself tied. Why and how? He had no idea how the invader located him or why. The man was dressed in black armor and had crimson eyes. His form was massive, standing 3 meters tall. Karlo felt little in front of him, despite his physical height. He had the impression that the monster could kill him just by being present. It wasn't his first time feeling this way, having met numerous heroes and monsters. He followed his instincts and recognized that he shouldn't take any chances. He may have turned into a monster and became foolish, in contrast to his human life, but he was not a death seeker. Who are you? Why are you doing this to me? Karlo was still an actor, so playing the helpless victim was simple. Stop acting. Lies don't work on me. I know your history, and your memories are open book, Naruto said coldly. They were all criminals who deserved to die. But death was far too simple. He planned to employ them for his purposes until they won their release or died. They were also not his subjects and were not subject to his laws. That was, of course, before his arrival, and now they will have their one and only reminder of the new global rules. Karlo felt the shackles dig into his body as Naruto seized his fist. It was the first time he had felt such agony in years. His mud-colored physique was pliable, allowing him to avoid discomfort. He couldn't even shift his body anymore and was forced to suffer like a human. Naruto came to a halt before the chains broke his body. That was not even 1% of what you deserved. Your kind deserves eternal torment for what you did. Fortunately, this is our first meeting, so you get to live, as my servant, repaying the world for your acts. I am your lord, and from now on, I am your emperor. Those are the only 2 names you can call me. Naruto shook his head and spoke to him in a strong tone. It wasn't the first time he gathered convicts to work for him. His elite crew included a large number of criminals. It was common practice in the ninja world. Expecting a ninja to be decent was like expecting a demon to have a good heart. It was the reason Naruto was slow to kill, since it would contradict his goal of peace and harmony. However, after the warning was issued, there were no more chances. Karlo felt a grasp on his face and knew he was in trouble when he heard that tone. It resembled the Suicide Squad, but with some differences. He considered staying in prison or joining the Suicide Squad to be preferable options. The man appeared to be ready to kill him if he made even one mistake. That was extremely severe for a monster like him, and even the Suicide Squad was given some freedom in terms of collateral damage. But there was no other option. He had to act like a good boy till someone put this guy down or he'd be killed right now. My lord, what is the purpose of this? What are we going to do? Clayface inquired as Naruto released him. It was humiliating to address someone as lord or emperor, but he had no choice. We're going to clean up the world and install a powerful system. I'm the emperor of mankind, so it's my duty to lead them to a better future. You're not going to be a meatbag following me around, Karlo, because you're going to help change this world. Aren't you sick of this pitiful way of life? Is it really what you want, to be hated by everyone and hated by everyone, living like a rat and not even getting the typical man's life? Do you really want to continue on this path until another villain kills you, the government kills you, or a hero snaps and kills you? Where did your dreams of a luxurious and carefree life go? Naruto replied, his voice captivating. He was giving them a second chance, so he needed to instill some change in them or they would continue to serve as henchmen. Because his voice was directly connected to the mind, it couldn't be disputed, and Naruto was able to erase some natural reactions so that the target understood the message without bias. Personal prejudice can distort even the most clear and basic message inside the mind. Clayface was astonished to hear his remarks because he didn't think the man would care. He expected the man to act self-righteously and not attempt to change him. His words and voice were unmistakable. They spoke directly to his heart. He was exhausted, but his hatred would not let him go. He was trapped in a vortex of darkness and was sinking further and deeper. At this point, he could be nuts. I want a better life. But I can't forgive Batman. I can't forgive the people who abandoned me in my hour of need. And, the world will never let go of my crimes. I have been branded and it will stick with me forever. Is this life of crime better than being stuck in prison for life? Clayface replied honestly because he knew Naruto could read his thoughts and he felt compelled. Naruto had already let him go, and Karlo stood there like a devoted disciple, without doing anything wrong. His hand was held back by fear. Follow me with all your heart, and I will make your dreams come true. You will be a world hero, live in luxury, and own the entertainment industry. Even I enjoy watching movies, Karlo, and I don't mind giving you that life. However, you must first establish your value. You have a significant obligation to pay, so never ask for a reward. I will give it to you when I believe you have earned it. This life will be dangerous, and you will face villains and heroes alike. But, in the end, there is only success. As my royal knight, you will be a living legend. Naruto tempted him with a bright future, and with his powers, Karlo couldn't help but think about those things. The visions were vivid, and a strong longing arose within him. Karlo felt the world brighten when Naruto placed his palm on his head. Karlo, like Pamela, symbolized an element and possessed the ideal body to receive Naruto's power. Karlo was transformed when the Senjutsu chakra drenched him. His abilities grew, and his mind was cured of the tension and mental difficulties that had collected over the course of his lengthy life. His human life had been hard, and his mind had continued to rebel against his decisions. Naruto assisted him in making logical connections and resisted his bias. Karlo needed to recognize that he was a sinner and not a victim. Naruto controlled the memories and tossed them at him in chronological order, while suppressing his personal sentiments. Karlo struggled as he was inundated with all of his sins and reminded of his history as a human, and how he had become something he despised. He could readily see how his own feelings had ruined everything. Nobody else was to blame. He completed the task. He could have always made better decisions and lived a better life, especially now that plastic surgery had advanced so much.
Karlo couldn't even enjoy his new ability because his emotions were tearing him apart on the inside. All of his better options came to him, and all of his mistakes were highlighted.
He saw and felt all of his misdeeds as Naruto thrust the feelings that the victims would have felt onto him.
Naruto had interacted with a large number of people, therefore he had remembered a wide range of feelings.
Naruto let go of him and looked coldly at him as he struggled and cried. Naruto felt nothing for him.
He truly took sadistic pleasure in inflicting misery on his rivals and foes. It was a protection mechanism to keep him from sympathizing with an opponent or feeling horrible about his conduct. Naruto was never in doubt about his activities. He moved with assurance. He was aware of what was right and wrong.
He knew how to act in any scenario, so he was never caught off guard.
Karlo needed a long time to climb out of the rut that had him considering suicide for what he had done. The sensation of sorrow nearly sent him into a deep despair. He had no idea how Naruto was feeling, but he had just witnessed him suffer through it all. Sitting there as if nothing were wrong.
He understood why he was going through it. He had to pay for his mistakes. He needed to figure out why he was here, because his previous assumption was incorrect.
It was the beginning of his road to salvation. Naruto had warned him that he would not tolerate suicide and would kill him if he made even one mistake.
Karlo felt profound remorse for everything he had done. He'd wasted 15 years of his life.
He didn't have a breakdown from guilt over his actions, but he did feel guilt now. He hadn't felt guilty since his childhood.
It had all come back to haunt him now that he was forced to hear and feel the thoughts of his victims.
His lord's acts were terrible. I will leave you to rest for now and call you when I need you. You are not the only one under me, and you will meet the rest later. And, remember, never act out of turn. Your death will be swift if you dare to break my rules. Naruto stood up from his seat and patted his back, leaving him with these words. While Naruto was away, Karlo returned to reality. He just felt empty, but Naruto had pushed him to focus on something else with those words.
He concentrated on the objective. He was going to be well-known and well-liked. He strolled to the bed and collapsed like a tree, very exhausted. The last of the 4 Narutos soared deep into Gotham's sewerage system, and he recognized Killer Croc before even seeing him. When he needed to hide, he could do it in the deepest regions. He was a big man who resembled a humanoid crocodile. He was dressed in blue jeans and a blue jacket. He was sitting on a sofa, listening to music and lost in his thoughts about life.
Naruto didn't have to think twice about this one because Killer Croc was a notorious monster with a significant quantity of blood on his palm.
Naruto stormed in, and Killer Croc was shoved up against the walls. He couldn't move as the enormous metallic hand pressed against his face against the wall.
Seals swarmed over his flesh, spreading from his face, and he struggled, but the strength difference was enormous. "Stop struggling, scum, you will listen and serve," Naruto murmured, his voice overflowing with power, sound genjutsu that aided his memory reading.
Killer Croc, real name Waylon Jones, was a criminal and Batman's archenemy. He was born with a severe type of the medical illness epidermolytic hyperkeratosis, which led his appearance to gradually resemble that of a crocodile, hence his name. His mother died while giving birth to him, and his father abandoned him. Waylon was reared by his abusive aunt, whose chronic alcoholism kept him from growing up in a healthy environment. Waylon had no friends as a teenager and was mocked by those who knew him. Jones was a frequent visitor to the juvenile prison center before being tried and sentenced as an adult at the age of 16. He murdered a fellow inmate who made fun of his appearance, yet he was released on parole after 18 years in prison. After being released from prison, he found work in a carnival sideshow wrestling alligators. "I broke their backs with my bare hands," Jones recalled later. "Then I got smart. I had the strength. I had the hatred. Why shouldn't I use it to get what I wanted? Killer Croc, they called me, but I knew someday, they'd call me king." Waylon began referring to himself as Killer Croc at this time. Even then, his strength much exceeded that of a regular human. Croc discovered there was more money to be made in crime and set out to become Gotham's most powerful underworld figure.
Croc was involved in a lot of crime. He attempted to lead his own group and even collaborated with others. He'd been in the company for a long time and had seen his share of ups and downs. People in the underground feared and respected him. He was one of Gotham's most prominent figures. He'd come dangerously near to killing the Bat several times and was personally responsible for Jason Todd's parents' deaths. When the pair pretended to be investigators, he fed them to the crocodiles and watched them perish like the other offenders. After enduring such tragedy, the young man became Batman's new Robin, but even that did not endure as he was murdered by the Joker after being tortured for 6 months. To make matters worse, he had been under the impression that Batman was looking for him, but Joker had dispelled that notion by showing him a photograph of Batman with the new Robin. Joker did not simply murder him, he broke him and killed the husk known as Jason. Croc has recently been involved with Medusa. It was a gang made up of creatures like him that had protected him from the Suicide Squad. But, as usual, things crashed, and he had to flee once more. Because Croc was wealthy, a life of crime was lucrative, but it was difficult and limited in freedom. There were too many heroes, and the government wielded excessive power. They were only fortunate that the authorities didn't want them dead. He deduced that it was done to divert the heroes' attention away from the government. While the government messed around in the background, the heroes and villains cancelled each other out. Croc didn't mind because he got to live while the heroes, in his opinion, were too stupid to detect such blatant methods. He was a stereotypical terrible tyrant with no redeeming traits. He had no regrets about his activities. He felt no remorse for whatever fatalities he had caused. There were moments when he made friends with normal people and helped them, but even that didn't warm the frigid monster's heart. His life had been a downhill slide into being a monster from the beginning, and he had accepted it. His name was Killer Croc, and his dream was to become King Croc. "What do you want? Who are you?" Croc demanded angrily. He despised it when people treated him as if he were a worm. He could feel his wrath mounting, but he couldn't express it since he couldn't move.
"Waylon Jones, you are a true scumbag. I am your lord. I am your emperor, emperor of mankind. You are alive because it is my rule to give second chances, or you would be dead right now. You certainly deserve more than a quick death, but you will get to serve me and settle your obligations to this world. You will labor for all your faults, or I will crush you like a bug," Naruto replied coldly as his hand squeezed Croc's, causing him to scream in pain. Naruto's tone altered depending on who he was speaking to. Croc was one of the worst guys he encountered. All of them, with the exception of Man-Bat, were rubbish and should be dumped. The others, on the other hand, experienced typical dreams. Killer Croc's ambition was to become a criminal lord. Croc was terrified when he heard his voice. His impulses shifted from fighting to fear. He wasn't up against a decent guy like Batman. He was up against a monster. He couldn't see his true face, but the crimson eyes and bloodlust devoured him. Fear caused his body to shake. Croc answered, "I will serve." He didn't want to die. He had hopes and plans for the future. Serving others was nothing new to him. He had been doing it all the time recently. He didn't mind what the monster forced him to do. He only needed to live till someone came to take care of him. He was being attacked by both the villains and the heroes. Even before reading his thoughts, Naruto could readily guess them. You will serve, and you will enjoy it. I despise what you have done, and I want you to genuinely change for the better. I won't let you go until I believe you've changed. Nonetheless, you are one of my chosen now, which means you will be rewarded and will go down in history as a legend. You will have all the wealth and freedom you desire, and your ambition is to become a crime lord. Is it enough? It's nothing extraordinary, but standing beneath me means the entire world will recognize you. They'll love you. You don't have to worry about your appearance because I'll make you normal looking. Nobody will mock you or call you nasty again. Naruto began the process of piquing his interest. He had a comprehensive understanding of the individual after reading him. He was self-conscious about his appearance. He desired to live a life of luxury and to be adored. He believed that crime was the simplest way to make money, yet he lacked the necessary skills. Croc looked around as Naruto released him, taking in Naruto's appearance. It was unmistakably powerful and scary. He was, however, distracted by his statements at the time. Can you really? Croc questioned, still having a problem with his appearance and becoming irritated when people commented on it. Of course, are you interested? Will it take away my powers? No, I have no use for ordinary humans. You will retain all of your power, and I will even enhance it, Naruto said calmly.
He enjoyed it when things went as planned. It felt good to have everyone playing to your music.
Croc was astonished since he never expected Naruto to make him stronger. He didn't appreciate being taken advantage of, but this was the best deal he'd ever gotten.
He didn't have much of a choice, so he chose to see where this new journey would take him.
I really want it. Naruto smiled as he converted Croc into a lovely man with black hair and green eyes by placing his palm on him. He was still tall and buff, but his eyes had improved dramatically. Croc noticed his new appearance in the mirror Naruto held up. He couldn't believe it was his own face.
He had the appearance of a model. He would have been good with a normal appearance, but this was far superior, and he still felt all of his powers.
You can transform back and forth, and this will be your public image from now on, while Killer Croc will be the masked vigilante. Croc nodded and began to consider a new name. He had no need to continue using his former name.
The name Alexander Summers sounded appropriate. Croc was thinking when Naruto's hand covered his head. He didn't put up any resistance and assumed it was time to activate the power.
Naruto granted him the power and even connected him to water, thus he got some water powers. That was all well and good, but then he felt pain. As Naruto administered the first dose of medicine to fix his issue, he experienced mental and emotional distress. Croc had always despised how others tormented and beat him because of his appearance, his mother's death, and everything else. Naruto showed him things from the victim's point of view and their emotions, causing his mind to compare them to his own. He never made a comparison because he had no need to, but now his thoughts was forced into it, causing him great mental anguish. He should not have let his guard down after the gift, he reasoned.
Croc needed some time to process the changes after Naruto had finished with him, so he sat down on the sofa. He was more focused now, and he felt a little sorry about everything he had done. It wasn't much, but it was something. Naruto was confident that they would change because they were following him. These people's failure to change after that would reflect poorly on him, and he could never allow that to happen. It wasn't impossible for people to not change when he didn't keep them around, and it had occurred before, and they blew up before they could behave evil. As it reacted to the wicked ideas, his judgment seal took care of the matter quite efficiently. It was created using his knowledge of Yamanaka mind powers. The clones vanished after meeting and enslaving his new subordinates. Naruto sat in his new chamber,
contemplating the information he had gathered from all of the offenders. It offered him a clear picture of the world and helped him consider his options. The planet was far larger than he had expected. The Earth wasn't the only thing, and there were species in space that could descend whenever they pleased. The world was teeming with strange species, monsters, and all kind of creatures. He was astonished it hadn't been demolished because it was such a shambles. With so many great heroes and villains, Naruto knew he had to stay in the shadows until he possessed the ability to live in the light. There were too many of them, and many of them could easily kill him. It was no problem for him because he was a ninja. He would employ the armored form for public operations but would try to escape detection whenever possible. However, he would be readily captured on camera from what he understood. The level of technology was really high. It was both a boon and a curse. Naruto had targets that may help him grow faster with all of these powers and technologies. Naruto didn't mind acquiring genetic transformation and power-boosting technology. He did, however, need to be cautious and patient. The heroes could undoubtedly assist him with everything he need. He could go to them and have his recollections checked. Take a few days to find his home, bring him back, and save the planet in less than a month. It was simple. But this easiness would come at a cost, since they would control him and prevent him from carrying out his plan to dominate the globe. Naruto was not going to kill and conquer like the others. He was going to win the people's love and support, and then he was going to take over the land. He would show the people that he was a better leader for them and that he could guide them to a brighter future. He was capable to resolving their issues. He'd listen to their grievances and everything. But it wouldn't matter to the heroes. They wouldn't believe him since he believed that criminals were not human. They were scum to be utilized and then dumped. His high kill total would also speak against him. It was unfortunate that the heroes were delusory and completely insane, just like their villain counterparts. Naruto did not despise them. He adored altruistic people like them and thought it was awful that they gave everything for nothing. They did save the world from major threats, but the smaller threats ended up killing non-stop because the heroes refused to kill. He could tell they had a variety of motivations for doing so. They were terrified of pushing themselves too far and becoming accustomed to pulling the trigger. They were frightened that the world would turn against them, giving them fuel. They were simply terrified of accepting responsibility. Why did they need to take the final step after they had done everything they could? In an ideal world, they would have done the right thing, and everything would be okay because the government would have completed the final step. The offenders were apprehended, and the government had the authority to execute them. It was that easy. However, that was an ideal world. In actuality, the government despised and feared heroes just as much as it despised and feared supervillains. The heroes were beyond their control, and they could literally annihilate the planet if they so wished. Naruto recognized the terror. He'd had training in this area. He had seen it through the eyes of ordinary people. They were terrified of the ninja who could kill them silently. Everyone who was afraid of the tailed beast had the same reaction. Fear caused people to be cautious, which sometimes resulted in poor decisions. Unfortunately, the heroes were unable to compromise and become government slaves. The government was a neutral or chaotic entity since it actively participated in criminal operations. The solution to all of their difficulties would have been to take over the government itself, but the heroes never considered it. The baddies couldn't do it either because of the heroes. While the government proceeded to play its game and collect additional pawns, both sides cancelled each other out. That was the unfortunate state of affairs. In all of this, Naruto felt sorrow for the civilians, who had gotten the short end of the stick. It was good that the heroes imprisoned the alien species rather than releasing them. Unfortunately, most of the time, that was just temporary. The universe was continually plotting to get the villains out and lured the heroes to kill. Worse, the baddies had no cause to fear the heroes. After a long time, the villains realized that the heroes would not actually kill them. If a hero snapped, the government could. Batman was not one of them. None of his villains were afraid of him. He was the most deranged lunatic in the shithole of a city, according to them. Not even the Joker was as insane as Batman. The reason they thought that way was simple: he had no human reactions. All evil knew he was the single hero they could never kill. Joker brutally murdered his sidekick after torturing him for 6 months. In that situation, Any regular person would have killed, but Batman did not. He beat up Joker and let the cops take him away, knowing he'd be free in a month or two. He lost the respect of many people and the dread of criminals after that day.
Nobody feared him any longer in Gotham. He was just a meaningless hero who could never help them.
He had also lost Gotham's respect and was incredibly violent, but this did not bring it back. Criminals who knew about it mocked and baited him, but all he could do was lock them up. Because of the larger threats, he soon became involved with the Justice League. Until his presence was required, Gotham was handled by Batgirl, Batwoman, Black Bat, Nightwing, Catwoman, and the others. It was the end of his relationship with Catwoman. There had been discussions regarding marriage, but they fell through due to his behavior. His actions appalled her. Jason had been like a little brother to her, and she had taunted him on numerous occasions. It foreshadowed her future, as Batman would not even avenge her or any of their children's deaths if it happened. To make matters worse, he prevented anyone who attempted to assassinate the Joker.
He halted Nightwing and Catwoman, causing the couple's romance to fall apart.
People used to believe that Batman would snap and kill people one day, but they soon learned that he had snapped a long time ago. He was merely an insane freak who couldn't kill even when he knew his acts didn't matter. He was fit for huge things as a leader, but his effectiveness on the lower end was nearly non-existent in the current times.
People were most afraid of Superman and the Flash.
People adored Superman because he was a good guy. The villains feared him because of his great power, but his continual nice guy attitude diminished that dread.
That was before they discovered he could become insane. Superman, unlike Batman, would kill every villain if he snapped. This information was spread by a magical villain. Lois Lane has become a taboo since that day. No one was allowed to interfere with her, and both villains and the government avoided causing any harm to her. The wife was the one who kept him sane and loving. Her death would turn the planet upside down. For a while, Naruto considered all of the information. He was used to assimilating vast amounts of info, which contributed to his maturity and high level of expertise. Naruto had gained experience from others in order to improve his skill level. Through the memories of the specialists, he had also gone through a plethora of diverse circumstances. He also grew up in a high-speed atmosphere, so he was used to accomplishing things at rates faster than sound. The speed increased over time, implying that he accomplished more in a single day. When he was around youngsters his age and interacted with them, he slowed down. His life was full of training and studying, but it was also full of fun and games. He had lived a life that was more than that of someone in their 30s or perhaps 50s in his 16 years and some months. He'd accomplished a lot. For some, his single day was equivalent to a week. After finishing arranging his thoughts, Naruto determined that he needed to assist the heroes in either abandoning or fully embracing the road. He had to do it since they would obstruct his actions. He would continue to do what he had always done for the villains. Give them another chance and kill them if they act stupidly. But there was a problem. What would he do about strong villains or super-intelligent villains like Lex Luthor? That was an issue. Once he issued the warning, he would lose the element of surprise, and these crooks would somehow nullify his seals. Should he just murder them and put an end to the problem? No, he'd be being hypocrite. He will make decisions based on the situation and use heroes to execute the baddies. Aside from gaining power, he had decided to gain public support for his new identity and alter the world. He would continue to do his job and gain support while he was here before taking over. He was the emperor, thus this world would be part of his domain. He couldn't ignore the world after witnessing its pain. He would have left it alone if it had been in better condition, but it needed someone like him. That was the awful reality. Naruto leaned into the sofa after deciding on his course and gathering enough knowledge. His training contributed to his rapid actions and adaptation. He wasn't an emotional person, and he never let emotions influence his decisions. His thoughts returned to his situation, relaxed. He wasn't thrilled to be in this strange new planet. He didn't like the idea of leaving the world to a lunatic. He had no idea what kind of damage Madara had done or would do in the future. He had faith in his team, friends, and everyone else, but this was a formidable foe. He would be devastated if they died despite his efforts. He was quite concerned about their safety. He imagined their future moves while thinking about them to see what might have transpired.
He experimented with the illusions that only he could see in his mind and used the evidence provided to build a compelling case for his faith in their safety and survival.
Madara was in desperate need of the Kyuubi. Naruto might temporarily kill the Kyuubi or transfer him to someone in this world.
He'd have to keep the people alive in order to catch Naruto. It would have to be done convincingly since Naruto would not quit up if he murdered even one of them.
With that in mind, Naruto felt confident that if a confrontation arose, the enemy would capture them rather than kill them. Che, did you hit your head on a rock? Why are you so stupid? Do you really think the pathetic human knew about dimensional travel? Human, I am disappointed in you. Naruto heard his demon's voice just as he was getting his bearings. The voice was loud and harsh, and the words were usually threatening.
Naruto entered the domain of the soul. The beast was imprisoned behind bars inside a vast cave connected to the mountain in a beautiful valley.
The shape of the soul realm revealed much about the person's personality. Behind the bars, Kyuubi was dozing on the ground. It was the nine-tailed demon fox. It was as tall as a mountain, standing 300 meters tall in addition to the 300 meters from the tails.
It was a beast with a tail that could break mountains. Its steps could create earthquakes. With its loudness, it has the potential to cause tsunamis. It was the ninja world's worst nightmare. It had obliterated kingdoms off the map during the battle with Hashirama. The Konoha rampage had destroyed 2 cities and left massive gaps in the Land of Fire. The impact was felt all around the world. The tremendous impact had shook the entire continent, triggering massive earthquakes and storms. Millions of people had died that night, and it had turned into a nightmare. Even though Konoha was at its weakest, none of the other villages dared to intervene due to the destruction and fear. Naruto stared at him without fear. He had been communicating with the beast since his birth. When he was 3 years old, it tried to trick and brainwash him.
He was fortunate to have a family and other loved ones who taught him not to listen to the big scary fox.
They had numerous disagreements over the years, and the fox gained a grudging respect for everyone, but he still despised everyone.
He desired freedom and would later discuss it. Why not? I can teleport, so why can't Nagato have something that can take us to a new world? Are you telling me that we're in an illusion? Naruto wondered. HMPH, your pitiful teleportation pales in comparison to what happened. Your mind has been touched for you to miss such an obvious thing. Why would the tiny bug be linked to this world? There are numerous universes. How did he come across this one? The world brought you out of your trance, and the thing that had drawn you seemed to have beckoned you to this world. Check with the other bug, you won't find anything. Kurama mocked him. He was an intelligent creature who had lived for 1,000 years.
In some ways, he was the son of the Sage of Six Paths. He was an immortal being composed of world energy. Along with his siblings, he had been tasked with being one of the world's guardians. However, mankind betrayed them, and it began with family.
The guardians became outcasts and hermits who isolated themselves from humanity. That is, until Madara came knocking, and everything went sour from there. They had been imprisoned for 100 years and it was still going on. They'd been tied and exploited like dumb creatures. Never treated as equals, nor even sentient people. They branded them monsters and such, never realizing that their hatred was motivated by something. They simply desired to be left alone.
Humans, on the other hand, want power. Greed would not allow for peace.
Kurama had sought to dominate Naruto since he was an orphan and a small child. Unfortunately, he was kept at bay by others. Kurama had been watching him grow up, and the youngster had impressed him. Konoha's bugs had such an odd notion, and they went with it.
Naruto was inherently personable and drew people, so he could see it working. It made him think of Asura and Indra. Naruto was a hybrid of the two, with both of their positive traits. With his power developing, he sensed a link between them, but Kurama denied it. He didn't want to think about anything until his freedom was guaranteed.
But now he was in a bind. This new world was far terrible than the old.
Going out would result in his death, as the heroes and villains would demolish him. He was not human in any sense, and he resembled a monster. They'd kill him before he could say anything. He couldn't even leave now. Naruto paused to consider it, and it made sense. He'd been taken in. Something had led him here. It didn't change the fact that he was here, and he would have chosen it regardless. However, it caused an issue. Conan had no idea how this worked. There were numerous universes. He'd need that person if he wished to return. Do you know anything about this? Naruto inquired, a cheerful smile on his face. He didn't blame Kurama for the night because he had been manipulated and was outraged. He would alter the enormous fox, but it would take some time. The power disparity persisted. Naruto was attempting to instill in him a positive perspective toward humanity through his cheerful demeanor. He needed to make something better because history only had awful instances of tailed animals. It had succeeded, and the fox had conversed with him about life and other matters. He was aware of his past and what he despised. There has been no mention of other universes. Naruto had no idea how vast the cosmos was. His thoughts were always on the globe, never beyond it.
Only in this realm had he seen more than the globe and begun to consider it.
No. This time try calling that thing. I really don't want to stay in this world, so make it quick.
We're not going anywhere anytime soon, and did you forget about Madara?
Don't say his name again, monkey. I'll crush you, Kurama growled, his eyes filled with wrath at the figure. He'll capture you and use you again, and I won't be able to protect you. Hey, protect me. I don't need anyone's protection, especially from a whelp like you, Kurama scoffed, controlling his fury. Naruto was correct in his assessment of Madara. Kurama couldn't take his gaze away from the man since he was the reincarnation of Indra. He couldn't dispute that bloody Uchiha had developed excellent sight. The Jubi was linked to the eyes. The Jubi possessed a Rinne Sharingan. Madara had treated him like a toy after the awakening of the eternal Mangekyo and became the Indra of the new generation. That monster must have progressed, and it may have attained the Rinne Sharingan itself. How about we collaborate for a change? We've been stranded in a new world, and we need each other. Consider this. We can accomplish so much more together. You despise the existing state of humanity, and I desire to change it for the better. Is the world I imagine beautiful or not? Naruto didn't take his statements personally. Kurama was superior to him, and comments didn't bother him because he wasn't that weak. How about you open the gate first, and then we can talk, Kurama challenged, knowing Naruto couldn't accomplish it. Naruto came to a halt as he glanced at him. This was a conundrum. He lacked the ability to command the fox. He wasn't sure he could put his trust in him. Sorry, that is too much for now. I have no reason to trust you, and you won't even tell me your name. You're such a coward. I thought we were friends. We can be friends, but you won't act like it. I don't mind the name calling, but it makes you look small. Come back when you've grown a spine. I think we're done here. You are only postponing the inevitable. You know you will serve me. Say that when you actually have the power. I will, and thanks for the heads up, Naruto remarked before turning around and walking away. Kurama was irritated as he watched him depart and smash the bars. He liked Naruto after their lengthy time together, but he didn't know how to accept it. He was well aware that Naruto expected him to settle the debt of his devastation. He was conscious and in command when he murdered the Uzumaki couple in one of the cities. He had done it out of wrath and hatred. He had no regrets or feelings of remorse about it. But after chatting with Naruto for so long, he realized that people were all different. He no longer believed that all of humanity was bad. He was reminded of his responsibilities. He remembered his father, so he did have some regrets about his life choices. He'll have to beat me before we can move on. This cage reminds me of my hatred. If it exists, I can't connect with anyone, Kurama reasoned as he chose to wait for Naruto to prepare for a confrontation with him. Finally, he couldn't accept working with someone weaker than him while being confined to a cage. He was not about to behave like a pet. He desired equality, which meant freedom. If Naruto dared to defy Kurama, he didn't mind killing both of them. Naruto stepped up from the sofa and strolled around the room, having finished with his prisoner. The place's depraved owner was a retard with a lot of knowledge.
He genuinely had a positive reading habit. He also had a writing interest, which was incredibly repulsive because he wrote about his heinous actions. He kept the items, as well as data on illicit actions, in a safe. Naruto quickly got rid of such items since he intended to exploit the new identity to gain public control without being identified with his true form.
Creating a new identity was a difficult task, especially in this world. So Naruto had no intention of doing it because he would be discovered if he stood out. That wasn't going to work since he was going to stick out. Naruto walked away from the safe and into his private study, which was loaded with literature on a variety of subjects. Naruto casually flipped through them, from psychology to politics, while thinking about other things. He had to consider the new team's composition and training. He had to consider how he would work in the new world. He also had to consider how he would balance work and relaxation, as too much work would push him over the brink.
Like the rest of the criminal scum, he needed to guide Conan and alter her.
Part of his mind was also filled with loneliness, as it was the first time he would be alone without a close buddy. He didn't let that portion overwhelm him, but he let the experience build up because it demonstrated how much he loved about the people who flashed across his thoughts. Part of his mind wandered to the League of Shadows. According to my memories, it was a large organization with advanced tech and even magic, and it could be a good substitute for Konoha. The problem was that none of the crooks knew the location of the League. The League appeared and vanished like shadows. But there was one hint. The Young Justice Group's Artemis has some ties to the League of Shadows and Batman. Young Justice was a group of young adults that took on lesser missions in place of the Justice League's grown-ups. Unlike the Titans, it was a team directly under the jurisdiction of the Justice League. It used to be known as Teen Titans, but they had grown up and became just Titans. Nightwing, formerly Robin, formed the organization. That group was not supervised by an adult, whereas Young Justice was accompanied by Red Tornado or any of the League members. Artemis, unlike Batman, was manageable. He couldn't read their minds, but he was highly convincing and knew how to get them to talk. He may perhaps wait for them to come to him. The League preferred to hire talented individuals. I'll wait for a while because there's no rush, Naruto determined, not wanting to create a terrible impression for no reason. Knock, knock. Knock. Naruto approached the study door and discovered one of the maids asking for permission. The depraved couple had excellent taste in companions. The women were stunning, and the guards or butlers were as attractive and fit. The pair had fun with all of them and used medicines to break them if they were mentally tough.
For example, Roberta, the head maid, was a victim of such a thing. She was sent in as a guard, but her chilly demeanor and appearance piqued their interest. She used to be a hired mercenary, but she was now a devoted slave.
Naruto felt sorry for the woman's situation. She had no one in her life till her mind was broken.
Roberta was a fair-skinned young woman with waist-length dark hair arranged in low pigtail braids over her brows, blue eyes, pointed canine teeth, and enormous, thick, and two spherical glasses.
She was dressed in a lengthy maid outfit. "Master, you have guests from the lower floor," Roberta said respectfully and affectionately. It was the effect of her being molded into this image. Her usual demeanor was always calm and chilly, with a few mild points.
She had no feelings for the couple, and it was just a job for her.
When he saw her, he was reminded of the specifics and resolved to resolve the issue with the maids and other workers.
He planned to erase all of their memories and return the place to normalcy. It would be awkward if one of the servants began sucking him off while he was deep in thinking. They also didn't always dress adequately. The worst-case scenario would be for Conan to murder the unfortunate bastard who had touched her body.
Naruto didn't mind doing such things, but only with those who did it willingly out of attraction for him. He wasn't a degenerate who thought with his dick and made such follies just because he was a sex addict. "Thank you, Roberta. You can go rest now," Naruto said as he approached her and placed his palm on her head. Roberta didn't mind because she assumed he intended to get flirty. While her memories were being repaired, Naruto's speech made her thoughts languid and sleepy. Naruto deleted all of the problematic elements and replaced them with new ones. He had to replace a lot of things because she had been working at the residence for 2 years. He finished in 5 minutes and knocked Roberta out in the process. Even once his chakra shielded her body, it still took its toll. Naruto snatched her and placed her on the study carpet. It was a comfortable sleeping area, and no one would suspect anything. After that, Naruto decided to go see his visitor. He intended to finish with the remaining staff later. Naruto discovered the visitor in the living room, and it was, as expected, a woman. One of the spouses from downstairs had arrived to his house with her youngest daughter. The woman with short black hair and violet eyes was known as Chloe Kane. She was a gorgeous woman who was fit despite being 40 years old and having 3 children. She wore a typical white gown and appeared to be a proper lady. She was a nymphomaniac to the extreme, and none of her children were from her husband. She'd been a jerk since the beginning, but the poor fellow had no idea. The degenerate marriage did not corrupt her. She actually participated in their more typical orgies. She also sought permission before doing so in her flat. Her poor husband worked far away and was frequently absent. The woman was really adept at playing with the man, so he didn't notice, and the children took after the denigrate woman as well. They were all whores that ruined partnerships and corrupted individuals by spreading their legs for everyone. From friends to coworkers, these women had led them all down the dark path of sexual immorality. In some ways, this woman was as repulsive as the couple. Naruto was not bothered by prostitutes or people sleeping around. He despised people who slept with their partners. He despised people who corrupted others and led them astray. It went like this: person, family, society, neighborhood, city, country, and world. The entire globe was on the right or incorrect path from one end to the other. "I've missed you a lot, Daddy." The 16-year-old girl ran up to Naruto and hugged him affectionately while kissing him on the lips. Candace was the name of the girl, and she was just as dangerous as the rest of them. With black hair and violet eyes, she resembled her mother. Candace donned a white dress with red shoes and had short twin tails. Naruto realized something that had been bothering him about these women after tasting her lips. For a normal individual, they had much too much sexual drive. They had intercourse all hours of the day and night, especially the mother. Chloe was getting action all day, and she took out at least 20 males. She too did it unprotected, but she did not become pregnant or contract any infections. She was able to persuade so many macho males to share. All of this was too much for Naruto, and with the kiss, he realized they weren't human. Candace's kiss and saliva were highly addicting, increasing pleasure and sex drive. Naruto had just intended to deliver commands and liberate the husband from their clutches while assisting him in finding a suitable wife, but he suddenly realized that they were more than he had anticipated. In close proximity, he could detect a distinct kind of energy, although it wasn't much. He could tell from the information he had that they were weaklings, which is why they went after average people. Naruto kissed the young girl passionately behind her back. She, too, was knocked out, as is customary. Chloe was taken aback by what happened, but she didn't see Naruto's power. She was aware of everything George was up to. Did he receive anything from his contacts? Chloe was delighted, not afraid. "Oh George, that is a wonderful surprise. May I have a taste?" Chloe cried excitedly as she approached him. Naruto sat Candace down on the sofa, snatched Chloe into his grasp, and kissed her goodbye. He totally marked her, just as he had Candace. He didn't want them interfering with other people and ruining their life. He may also use their seduction and illusion powers to help his crew. Through these, he might get entrance to the underworld. Others provided him with rudimentary knowledge, but they also provided him with something significant. He could employ them to enter the underworld and gradually take over parts of the region before capturing the entire territory. He could use them to satisfy his carnal desires because few women could handle it and he couldn't sleep around freely for fear of being found. It was part of the stress-relieving routine. Chloe was overjoyed with one single kiss, which blasted her with pleasure unlike anything she had ever felt in her 100 years of life. She was a low-level succubus under Queen Lilith, one of the underworld's rulers. Lilith was one of the most powerful beings to have ever existed, and she had collaborated with other powerful demonic beings to corrupt and destroy humanity. Succubae were one of the many ways Lilith led humans astray. They were lustful and desirous animals, something Lilith excelled at. It wasn't a question of evil or anything, it was simply their nature. They liberated people. They forced individuals to do whatever they wanted without regard for morality or other considerations. George, for example, was a degenerate, but he would never sleep with his daughter. But he had been sleeping with his daughter intentionally since his cravings had further perverted him. He had pregnant numerous women in the building, and it gave him joy to know that some poor sob was raising them without knowing it. He had 3 sexual relationships with those children. Candace was his daughter, and they were both aware of it. Her girls, like Chloe, had no sense of values because it was not in their nature. They did what they wanted and didn't care what others thought. Because Chloe hadn't actually told them about their true origins, all of the kids were using their powers unconsciously. She had arrived in the human world as part of a group 50 years ago, but all of her colleagues had been hunted down by demon hunters and those interested in demonic fields. Chloe chose to remain hidden and simply live. Nobody cared where she went since she was only a pawn in a bigger game. She met her husband by chance and ended up liking him. He used to be a fantastic hottie, but he began to remain longer for work and other reasons. It was due to his insecurity. Chloe's sexual hunger was too much for him to bear, and he found it difficult to resist her temptation. They were never compatible, which was terrible. From then, things went bad, and Chloe began to indulge her true impulses, finding even greater pleasure in the sensation of cheating. Life had been on her side because the place where they resided was owned by someone with whom she could agree and enjoy sleeping. George and Stella were human, but they had taken medications to improve their health and extend their lives. It was the reason they could live such a hedonistic existence. She had slept a lot, but this was the first time she had experienced something like this. Her thoughts went blank, and she realized she couldn't feel anything meaningful from others any longer. A kiss gave her more pleasure than any other hedonistic action she had indulged in over her long life. She had no idea how he did it, but that didn't matter. She simply desired more of it. She hoped he could please her alone, or she'd go insane. Candace had a similar sentiment. At the age of 13, the 16-year-old girl had become involved in sexual immorality. She'd had an affair with her tutor. She has slept with everyone from teachers to the parents of her friends since then. She, like her mother, had directly caused the breakdown of several families and wrecked the lives of her friends. Candace saw nothing wrong with it, and this was due to her upbringing. She had grown up in a home where numerous men visited every day, and she could hear her mother and sisters howling with delight. There was immorality all around her. She had resisted it because the others at school were normal, but her blood made her fall once she reached the age of 13. She preferred sleeping with George because of the sense of taboo and his greater stamina and talents. But she still slept with other people. However, it was modest in comparison to the others. She couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else. After the kiss, everyone else felt tasteless in contrast, and going further would be much better. Naruto wasn't in the mood for sex, so he wasn't interested in them. He wanted to starve them and give them nightmares for what they had done. They weren't allowed to have morals, so he planned to teach them and let them build their own. Control and knowledge distinguished humans from animals. Naruto placed them to sleep on the sofa while introducing them to the rest of the personnel and modifying their memories. He also gained knowledge from their recollections in order to form a more complete picture of the world around him. The contemporary globe has more countries than the ninja globe. Most of them were weak, just as in the ninja world. The only countries he had to be concerned about were the United States, China, and Russia. However, because the heroes and villains were dispersed, he had to exercise caution throughout America and Europe. He was free to take over Africa, Antarctica, and Australia based on the image he created from the data. The Middle East was rife with turmoil, but Black Adam resided in Egypt. He was once an adversary of Shazam in the Justice League, but he had reconciled with his wife. The marriage had taken place with Shazam's consent, and Black Adam was now a friend of the heroes. Going to that location meant clashing with Black Adam, who was strong enough to treat him like a child. In addition, the Justice League, Stormwatch, and other organizations possessed global surveillance via space stations. When those groups decide to intervene, any explosive clash would be easily discovered and turn into a huge mess. Every region had its own domain. Even those Naruto felt he could take over, but those organizations were too weak to stand up to him. He could take them out without drawing attention to himself. However, that was merely an estimate based on secondary information from those involved in those places. Naruto had only recently arrived in the new world, so he wasn't about to behave rashly and end up being killed or imprisoned. There was no reason to go so hastily. He needed to ensure that no one could find him. Naruto provided several of the employees delayed illusions after modifying their memories. These were filthy people who deserved to die. Naruto instructed them to return home, and the illusion would activate once they arrived. It would reveal his true armored form, which would give them a scare of a lifetime. Their bodies and spirits would be broken, and they would never consider doing wrong again. Naruto was an expert at breaking individuals since he had obtained memories from persons working in that department and had done it himself numerous times. Itachi had taught him the delayed illusion technique, which was a high-level genjutsu. Itachi could execute it casually. However, Naruto required more concentration due to Kurama and his vast chakra reserves. He wouldn't normally be able to utilize genjutsu at all, but he could. Naruto was able to do so because he had obtained blood from the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. Although he did not grow a Byakugan or Sharingan, his eyes did change. His eyes were blue, but when he used his talents to their maximum potential or when he used chakra on delicate objects, they turned crimson. His eyes granted him more chakra control. It was necessary due of Kurama's size. His father had divided Kurama and trapped half of him inside Naruto. Over time, Kurama grew back to full size, which enhanced Naruto's chakra capacity. However, this meant that more than half of Naruto's chakra was no longer available to support the seal. The constant battle between their chakra ruined his control, and increasing control was the most difficult thing he had to do. Naruto would have to break the seal and Kurama would have to become one with him to solve the dilemma. That was a problem since Kurama was looking for a battle. Naruto needed time and power for this, especially now that Kurama had become Super Kurama. Super Kurama was the result of the union of Yin and Yang Kurama. Naruto was intended to become the world's strongest being. He was meant to be unstoppable. The other Jinchuriki posed a threat to that objective. Even when they weren't using the Biju power, every vessel was at least close to cage level. They easily surpassed cage level after using the Biju power. It was the reason why many nations were wary of managing them and ended up not training these people enough. Gaara, even as a youngster, was stronger than the Kazekage with the power of one tail. The father only won because the child lacked experience. The Akatsuki also defeated them by working as a team and catching them off guard in spots where they couldn't fight well. Gaara was taken to his city, where he was never allowed to exercise his full strength. The two tails were extracted from the sewers near a city. She was on the defensive because a full-fledged conflict would have killed the people. It was the same for all of them, and when they were fully charged, they were game changers. If Killer Bee had listened to his brother and taken action, they would have defeated Konoha long ago. This was a vital measure to avoid resistance from the others.
Kurama's second half had likewise grown back to full size inside the Shinigami, and he was successfully trapped inside Naruto. It had also liberated Minato's entire soul from unending combat with the fox.
When the two halves collided, they instantly fused into one and grew massive.
Kurama's power has increased, making him more powerful than ever. This boosted Naruto's chakra capacity even further. Naruto now possessed half of the original Kurama's chakra capacity and 1/4 of the present Kurama's.
Such an increase in power would necessitate further help or control, which would be impossible.
Naruto took a little nap after doing all of his work because he couldn't communicate with the earth.
After a few hours, Naruto awoke and ordered the cooks to prepare a lavish lunch while he took a bath. Naruto felt immensely invigorated, thanks to his powerful form that had been properly shaped by intensive training. He did feel the emptiness at times, such as when he awoke alone on a bed or entered the bath. Normally, he would have someone by his side for entertainment or companionship. With no one trustworthy by his side, the aim in life felt a little bit more difficult.
Naruto considered creating clones to act like his pals, but decided not to be too depressed and shook his head.
Someone unexpected appeared just then. Konan was completely naked.
She was as stunning as ever, and her physique was flawless in every way. It was slender and didn't ruin her appearance.
She had no scars or marks on her flawless skin. "I didn't expect your presence," Naruto replied, his gaze shifting from her feet to her face. Shinobi was unconcerned with mixed baths and nakedness.
They were taught from the start not to be ashamed. If Naruto was fighting a naked woman while naked, he wouldn't even blink. It did, however, work against most beginners and appeared to function in the contemporary environment as well. Konan didn't change her demeanor while she cleaned up and sat in the huge bath.
"I just wanted to demonstrate that we can trust each other, and did you do anything to the employees?" Konan asked gently. She'd slept for 3 hours and it hadn't been as painful as usual.
Naruto appears to have helped her, so she got a decent night's sleep. He had done more than she had imagined from start to finish. Konoha seems to have done something correctly for a change. Instead of a monster, they had built a proper leader. But she needed further confirmation of his abilities before she gave him the thumbs up.
"I did, or they would have gone down the path of orgy." The couple was very perverted, so I had to change their memories and help most of them become normal again. As for trust, I am glad you were willing to take a step ahead. Otherwise, it would have been pretty difficult. Naruto grinned as he looked her in the eyes. She looked better after the rest. He understood her grief and sympathized with her problems. The brutal world forced them along the road, which was closely related to his master. Danzo was personally responsible for their pain, thus he had yet another motivation to assist her. Trust is a two-way street. I need to at least demonstrate my willingness to change. I don't know what you think of me, but I regret what we've done. I can make excuses for our actions and mindset, but it doesn't matter. Konan brushed her hair as she spoke. She wasn't reliant on Naruto, but he had revealed her their mistake. Even if Naruto abandoned her, she was determined to make amends until her spirit could support her. She didn't have the stamina to keep walking for an extended period of time. Konan had a strong urge to let things go. She was sick of the cruel world that held nothing of her. She walked down a path. No, she crawled on a route to make the world a better place so that others would not have to suffer as they did.
She had strong desires to terminate it all, but her shame and regrets kept her going.
I understand why you fell. Unfortunately, most of it is related to Danzo. Relax. Naruto noticed her unpleasant reaction to his name.
She didn't show it, but it was obvious to him. I won't make excuses for him, and I won't accept yours. He changed over time, or he wouldn't be alive now. I am fair and just to everyone, and I would have killed him if he hadn't changed.
Only time will tell if you are the one or not, Konan said, dropping the argument. It was an awful subject.
Naruto smirked at those remarks, fully confident in his talents. He did not continue the conversation and informed her of his actions. He offered her information about the globe and even taught Konan English, Spanish, German, and Russian.
He learned the languages through the maids and other workers. Konan was impressed by his actions since he did not act like a lost child in the wilderness and instead acted professionally, as he had stated.
After the bath, the two ate normally and talked about morals and ways to make the world a better place. Konan had lost her way, and the only answer she could see was death and devastation. Fear was her only response.
Naruto may agree to it in part, but their approaches were different. Naruto could instill dread without killing, but Konan instilled fear by massacres and whatnot. She also lacked information about how to improve citizens' lives. They were so lost in their journey that the group had barely considered the topic of societal development.
It was the reason village of Rain was one of the world's most gloomy locations. While the meeting was going on, Naruto's clone left the city to set up bases for the squad.
Naruto soared out of Gotham in sage mode, becoming one with nature to the point where people couldn't tell him apart from the wind. Naruto had done some research on the internet before making his move. There were several regions in the United States that were devoid of human life, such as deserts and ghost towns. Naruto traveled to these ghost towns in several states and established subterranean bases in these locations, including deserts. Naruto used his elemental power to create the bases, and everything was done with aesthetics in mind. It has many rooms with everything they needed. There were meeting rooms, training rooms, storage rooms, a lab, a game area, a bath, and other amenities. Naruto carved seals on them to keep them hidden from others. People who came close would avoid it. He made it highly robust and imprinted it with Hiraishin seals so he could teleport between them. To escape detection, Naruto stayed on the outskirts of these states and away from inhabited areas. He built so many bases to avoid being tracked and to make escape easier. Naruto also used nature energy to help the seals and escape being traced. He wasn't arrogant enough to imagine that these bases would never be discovered. Naruto sat on his throne and gazed at his axe after completing his main stronghold in the Mojave Desert. The axe, breastplate, and chain were the best weapons in his universe. He had always been proud of them, but he no longer believed in them. These objects are extraordinarily durable and valuable since they were fashioned from shards of goods used by the Sage of Six Paths. Naruto couldn't scratch them even now. The sage possessed the power to split the universe and recreate it. He could demolish the moon and recreate it. Many people believed these were myths, but Naruto knew they were true since Kurama had mentioned them. Kurama was aware of the fight against the Jubi. Naruto's items were too powerful for anyone, but now too many adversaries could smash them. He had never considered going above these products, but now he was determined to improve them to a degree beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Hephaestus was the target for this mission. Wonder Woman, Wonder Girl, Troya, and Cheetah were the only ones who could help him. He needed greater power to ask for such a large favor from this target. For the time being, he would have to gradually level up his gear by utilizing better materials and technology, as well as adding some magic to it. Don't be offended, partner. I'm going to improve you, not replace you, Naruto said to his sentient equipment. Aya, Enkidu, and Alpha were all intelligent. They could function without his command and assist him if he was knocked out. They each had their own energy cores, and by properly integrating with Naruto, the combined power was enormous. Naruto could use the things to defeat Kurama, but he couldn't use them against Kurama. None of the sage weapons were effective against tailed beasts unless the beast lacked intelligence. Kurama would also reject him if he used help in their struggle. Nonetheless, his companions were pleased with his response and buzzed with delight at the prospect of a new frontier. The equipment, like their master, was enthralled by the prospect of advancement. After finishing those thoughts, Naruto determined to put the world to the test. Naruto created a weak clone and transformed it into a genuine hawk. While being one with nature, the clone flew around the planet. Naruto watched everything and kept an eye out for any outside influences. The clone flew across the planet for more than 2 hours without being discovered. It was enough for Naruto to realize that nobody was effectively monitoring the world for mysterious intruders since there were too many conflicting parties. It could also imply that those who did notice him were uninterested in him. Overall, it was beneficial to him. After completing the Earth experiment, Naruto created another clone and performed true transformation to convert him into Batman. He obtained traces of Batman's DNA from the criminals via parts of his cloak or hair. The clone flew into space, heading towards the moon. Naruto's clone could easily survive space because he didn't need to breathe until he had chakra in his system. Chakra could replace anything a human required, from food to air. Chakra's only limitations were his skill and imagination. The history of chakra users was brief, and the majority of it included strife that resulted in loss. The next generation was still striving to reach the level of their forefathers. Only Naruto aspired to surpass the old man's level. It was his pride since he couldn't stand being second best. He carried many people's hopes and dreams on his shoulders, therefore he didn't give himself the luxury of pessimism and mediocrity. Returning to the topic at hand, Naruto flew into space with little opposition. Using his abilities, he discovered the unseen space stations of the various forces. There was the Justice League Watchtower and the Stormwatch, as well as other less sophisticated nations' bases. There were additional satellites belonging to LexCorp and other huge corporations, all of which were clearly involved in nefarious activities. All of these stations were hidden utilizing technology rather than magic. Naruto's senses had improved as a result of his encounter with the planet, and his senses made use of nature itself. Because space was likewise nature, anything within it would be visible to him. Even Naruto didn't know how to avoid such tremendous sensing skills, but he anticipated powerful magicians to be able to do it. It surprised me that they didn't do it. They appeared to be encouraging adversaries into their base. He could detect tremendous beings inside the watchtower, but only one was stronger than him. The watchtower was visited by Hawkgirl, Aquaman, and Green Lantern. Naruto saved their energy fingerprints and resolved to verify their identities once they arrived on Earth. He couldn't determine who was who because he couldn't see through objects. It was the same for the others, which he meticulously stored. He realized that conflict with all of them, especially Stormwatch and JL, was unavoidable. Naruto flew towards the moon, leaving the bothersome future opponents behind. It was the first time he had truly left the Earth and looked down. It was an amazing experience. The view was breathtaking. It was one of his proudest moments. Naruto took in the scenery while keeping an eye on the moon and checked to see whether there were any people in it. There were people on the moon in his universe. They had discovered proof from artifacts and ruins, and they had even witnessed some of them. Because the moon people were linked to the sage's brother, none of the ninja attempted to establish contact in order to avoid difficulties. They didn't want outside armies to get involved because there was already violence on the planet. There was a base inside the moon, just as Naruto had predicted. It was as large as the Forest of Death in the core of the moon. It had a circumference of about 20 kilometers. There was a magnificent, ancient-looking palace in the middle of it, encircled by a forest. There was a massive lake and numerous massive statues. The foundation was lit by an artificial sun in the center, and Naruto could sense energy from the palace in the statues. It wasn't a typical location, and there was someone inside. Naruto now had two options. He had the option of returning or entering. Naruto examined it again and discovered no significant threat therein. Furthermore, this wasn't his true body. Without further ado, Naruto used the Earth-style underground projection fish technique to slip through the surface. It was a jutsu that allowed the user to move like a fish in water by allowing them to sink into the ground. It was a high-level talent that used some parts of space manipulation, similar to how replacement jutsu used it. It was a skill that the typical chunin could use, but things altered based on expertise. Madara, according to Conan, could get through anything. It demonstrated that he had a high level of mastery over space manipulation. Naruto was also striving for this after learning the projection method. The journey to the center was quick because Naruto used half his speed without the armor's assistance, which was 5 times the speed of lightning, Mach 1500. Naruto flew silently above the concealed base. It was a beautiful location, and the building construction matched the classic Roman style. That was all Naruto had, and he couldn't link it to anyone. His senses warned him that there was someone within the palace. Naruto soared inside the palace, and no defense system activated because he couldn't be separated from nature. Naruto could see mysterious symbols, materials, and designs while taking in the surroundings. The palace had a mystical quality to it. It was unique. But he couldn't test it out right now, so he flew to his destination. Naruto entered a massive hall and discovered a woman passed out in the center. The young lady was stunning, with long, silky pink hair. She wore a silver crown with a crimson ruby in the center and diamonds on the sides on her head. She was dressed in a silver cape and silver light armor that covered her torso. She was dressed in a silver armored short skirt and silver knee-high boots. She also had silver gauntlets on each of her arms. Her body appeared frail, but Naruto could tell she was used to close combat. Naruto could see a crescent moon design on her forehead and a sword with a crescent moon on the hilt on her side. Naruto could sense the girl's energy, and she wasn't anything like a normal person. The palace appeared to be linked to her and to be protecting her. The moon appeared to be connected to her, and the gravity surrounding her appeared to be messed up. Despite having all of the information, Naruto was unable to connect her to anyone. He'd even visited websites devoted to gathering information on heroes and villains.
The data was public, so it wasn't entirely accurate, but it provided a solid base.
Naruto circled the woman. She was unconscious and unresponsive to anything. It was clear she hadn't planned on falling asleep like Wei.
Naruto used his power over the wind to make tiny clones that flew towards the target. The defensive system responded by blocking it with moonlight.
It didn't attack since his presence was still undetectable by the defensive system, demonstrating the technology's weaknesses. Instead of attacking, Naruto opted to wake her awake straight with the elements. Naruto waved his palm, causing water to appear around the girl and fall on her like rain. With cold water on her skin, the girl shifted and awoke quickly, brandishing her blade and gazing around. Small light shields moved about her body as the gravity around her grew to 50 times that of Earth. Naruto chose to observe rather than act. Laura Klein, often known as the Lunar Maiden, was the young lady. She was a well-known superhero and the daughter of High Klein. Hugh Klein was an American astronaut on the final manned moon mission, Apollo 25. Hugh discovered an ancient structure on the moon, which became known as the Lunar Villa. Inside, Hugh discovers an infant girl in a crib and is accosted by the 100, a ghostly consortium. Callias, the 100's speaker, said that they were a group of peace-loving scientists and philosophers who fled Rome during the emperor's reign. They built the Lunar Villa using alchemical procedures in order to produce a champion of their peaceful views on Earth. Unfortunately, they mistakenly constructed the Centurion as the villain instead. To atone for their error and to propagate their ideas, they established the Praemonstra Supra, which translates as, "She who will point the way." Hugh returned to Earth with the young kid, which he and his new wife, Jenny, were allowed to adopt and raise as their own. Laura had no visible superpowers, but she was always a bright and athletic child. Laura's gravity control abilities became apparent when she was 16. Hugh and Jenny told Laura about her origins, and she and Hugh went to the Lunar Villa, where the ghostly remains of the 100 told them about her origins and their purpose. Laura began her career as Serenity, the Moon Maiden, at this point. She quickly acquired many friends in the superhero community, was an early member of the Justice League, and participated in at least one Teen Titans expedition. The Centurion was her most frequent opponent at this time. During one of the Centurion's extravagant plots, he utilized an erasure weapon, a technology capable of erasing a creature from history. After erasing several important heroes from existence, Moon Maiden, together with the remaining members of the Justice League, the Teen Titans, and Infinity Inc. took the battle to the Centurion, in what was known as the Century War. Moon Maiden, in an act of self-sacrifice, flew herself and the Centurion high into the sky and destroyed his weapon, producing a massive explosion and erasing the two from history. Laura assumed that was the last of her, but she returned in the world. She was overjoyed to be alive and checked things out, only to discover that there was no sign of her anywhere in the globe. She had never existed, and no one had ever heard of her. She was devastated when her parents failed to identify her. She teleported to the Lunar Villa since she didn't want to ruin their joyful life with their new children. She didn't have much energy to fight. Her mental and emotional stress was too much for her. Laura's body felt like lead, and she sank to the floor in an unpleasant manner. Her thoughts was a jumble, and despite the moonlight's ability to heal her completely, she had no desire to wake up. The real world was a nightmare, and she was suddenly completely alone. She wished to sink in her agony and regain her bearings before attempting anything. The villa gave her pleasant dreams, and then she was assaulted by a wave. She promptly got up because there was no such system in the villa. She used her powers to search the villa for an enemy, but she found none. Laura was only 18 years old, however she would have been 23 if she hadn't been erased for a period of time. For the most part, she had been a regular, tomboyish girl. She only learned warfare and faced perilous situations in the previous 2 years. She was a naturally courageous and gentle kid who never had bad thoughts. Laura had always wanted to help others and lead them, even before she knew who she was. Even though she found nothing, she did not relax her guard. It wasn't a dream. The water was still there. "Who's there?" "I know you're here," Laura said as she calmed down and stood her ground while dropping her blade. "My name is Serenity the Moon Maiden, and I am the protector of Earth. Please, show yourself." "I know you mean no harm," Laura said gently, although feeling depressed within. There was a glimmer of optimism that it was someone who remembered. Naruto examined Laura silently and read her body language, emotions, and energy movement. She wasn't deceiving him. Naruto chose to reveal himself and appeared in his genuine armored form, however his energy signal remained similar to that of Batman. He wasn't going to leave such a big clue behind. His armored look was no secret, and word would spread quickly. "Greetings, Miss Serenity. My name is Alpha, and I am the Emperor of Mankind. I was traveling the world when I came across this lunar villa and paid a brief visit. I hope you don't mind the intrusion." Naruto appeared, towering over the young woman, who stood at 1.7 meters. His tone was warm and relaxed. It was a tone intended for nice people, and he respected it. Laura searched her recollections for the identity of the enormous figure wrapped in intimidating armor who materialized just a few feet from her place. He was new, and he didn't know who she was. He exuded majesty, but his voice and body language revealed that he was gentle. Laura's eyes twinkled like stars as she unwound his moral compass. One of her abilities was the ability to detect if someone was nice or bad. Her moon eyes told her he wasn't a nasty person with ill intentions. This was the core of her job as the one who would lead humanity to a brighter future. "I don't mind your intrusion and thank you for your kind intentions. Would you like to join me for a drink?" Laura was lonely at the time and saw that the man wasn't horrible, so she decided to approach him. She had no idea what had happened in the 5 years she had been gone. She, too, was at a loss for what to do. There was also the possibility that her adversary would return if she did. "I don't mind. Miss Serenity appears glum, and I don't like such emotions on good people. Please allow me to assist." Naruto approached her and held her hand in his. Naruto grew to be 2 meters tall since his big stature was terrifying the young woman. He wasn't telling the truth. Naruto loathed unpleasant emotions and would not wish them on anybody save his enemies. Laura could tell from his statements that he was sensitive to emotions. His demeanor indicated that he came from a noble family. He wasn't pretending. He was raised and trained in it. She learned so much from her teachers at the Lunar Villa and by meeting with leaders. Thank you for the offer, but please allow me to decline. I understand, Naruto said softly, letting go of her hand. He appreciated the feel of her abilities and got a close touch to help him mimic them. The categories of space, gravity, time, and soul have not been extensively explored in Ninja World. Naruto could use weight manipulation to increase or reduce the weight of objects. He might also use seals to accomplish this. He had the ability to teleport and create portals. He has the ability to transform into a ghost and depart his body. He could call the Shinigami or use the Shinigami's scythe. However, all of these skills were unique, and he couldn't adjust them at his skill level. He couldn't manipulate time or space freely. In addition, he had no control over gravity. He had never given it much attention because he was always so busy with so many things that he never ran out of things to study. Naruto was particularly interested in recreating gravity and adding it to his skill set after learning what it could achieve. He was knowledgeable, but the ninja world didn't know anything about gravity. The gravity of stars and black holes was fascinating. Naruto was intrigued by Serenity's strength. Thank you, Laura said as she took him to the garden area where she enjoyed relaxing.
While instructing golems to attend to Naruto, she excused herself for a few moments to freshen up. These were the hundreds alchemical concoctions. Unfortunately, they were all gone. The place was now desolate. Laura had a quick wash before returning to her fighting attire, since she had a visitor. She knew he wasn't evil, but her safety came first, especially after nearly dying.
Thank you for your patience, Laura said as she sat down and watched Naruto drink tea without removing his armor. It was extremely interesting because she didn't know how to do it.
She would have been concerned about her hidden identity, but her existence had been obliterated, therefore it no longer mattered. She usually used a helmet to protect and identify herself by covering her face. No problem, I was admiring the scenery, it's a lovely place, Naruto responded softly as he placed the teacup on the table.
Control was required because the cup was delicate.
While she was gone, he had been keeping a close eye on the garden and the palace. It was a beautiful and fascinating sight, so he had reasons to remember it. Naruto was fond of artistic and beautiful things. Outside of battle and leadership, he had been taught a variety of skills. He had a distinct sense of style. He had the demeanor to match his position, etc.
Laura smiled at his words since she was pleased for her professors and appreciated this environment.
It is the best creation of the 100, a group of scholars and philosophers from the Roman Empire devoted to peace in ancient times. They are my teachers who trained me to help the world, Laura said.
She felt proud of them, and it would be a shame if the world forgot about them after all they had accomplished. Naruto could understand her feelings because he had many teachers as well, and he would be pleased to discuss them with others.
That would be with close friends, though. They sound wonderful, and I wish I could have met them because I am very interested in learning, but I am curious. Why have I not heard of you? Naruto asked as he moved on to his main question. Because of her attitude, feelings, and lack of life at the base, he knew her teachers were dead. Laura felt thrilled after hearing his remarks, but then things went downhill. His question drew her unpleasant thoughts to the surface.
The answer to that question is delicate, so I am unable to share it with you. However, if you can gain my trust, I can share it, Laura said as she picked up her teacup and took a sip. She brushed her hair aside and set it down. She couldn't tell him about it casually because there were so many sensitive issues involved. She couldn't share a strong weapon that was part of the plot with just anyone. Naruto may draw a lot of conclusions from her remarks. The subject at hand held many secrets. She wasn't lying, and she didn't appear to be a stealth expert.
Naruto came to the conclusion that someone had wiped all traces of her existence from the world. Naruto could do it for ordinary people, but doing it for everyone was something spectacular.
Naruto realized Laura's sadness was serious after connecting the memory removal.
He didn't know who did it or how, but he was intrigued.
What exactly do you have in mind? What is your goal? Laura inquired, using her ability and staring at him.
It's simple. I want to help humanity achieve peace and harmony under my rule. I could have left it out,
but that would be a lie. It's why I'm emperor of mankind. You've seen how the globe is racked by various forces. It's a shambles. I plan to win the hearts of the people and lead them to a better existence.
I have prior leadership experience and knowledge. Is this good enough? Naruto replied directly. His goal was obvious, as it was written in his name. The secret would be how he would do it.
Laura had not anticipated such response. She assumed it was just a name or that he was from another universe or solar system. He seemed serious and confident in his words. She didn't know how to pass judgment on him. Her mission was also to guide humanity to peace and harmony, therefore they shared certain goals.
What do you think of the average man? I treat everyone fairly and justly. Relation and power don't matter. I don't look down on them because they have their roles and I have mine. Many of my close friends are just normal people, Naruto said, recalling Iruka and the Ichirakus.
What do you think of the Justice League? I like them. I like selfless people. I sympathize with them and regard them as mentally ill. They have saved the world many times, but they could easily do better. Their insanity in letting villains go and expecting things to change leads me to believe that they are psychologically ill.
Oh, they're your friends? Naruto asked as he ate some biscuits.
Laura had a negative reaction to the response. They were her friends and role models.
But she couldn't argue with him. Even she was troubled by their policies after witnessing crooks escape alive while innocents died. It seems that they valued the lives of crooks more than the lives of innocent individuals. Can you do better than that? Do you understand why they can't? Of course, I can do better. Anyone can, and even the police force has a greater impact on the world down there than the JL. The police and army are permitted to go for the kill against such villains, whereas the heroes must instead submit. I hope you recognize that in those instances, even ordinary civilians have the right to fight back.
The heroes are mostly terrified about backlash and plunging too far down this rabbit hole. When you murder someone, it becomes easy, and you may not even contemplate another choice. That is their fear, I believe, and it is justified. It is valid, but it is not worth the lives sacrificed.
They're cute, but they're lost sheep. They prioritize their principles over the lives of the innocent. They, unlike me, have the ability to simply change the world if they so desire.
Isn't it unfortunate that such beings, incapable of intelligent thought, were granted power? It is not difficult to make the world or criminals right. They have tremendous powers, but none of them have used them effectively for reformation. The heroes are doing it half-heartedly. If they aren't going to kill, they should at least hide their tracks the rest of the way. Instead, they lock them up and release them the following week.
Is this sufficient, Serenity? I've killed with these hands before, and I don't mind doing it again.
I give folks a second opportunity and a roadmap to change. They will perish if they do not. If they succeed, they will live happily ever after. That is my approach because I do not value the lives of criminals and innocents equally. They are not the same. Do you believe they are on same footing? Is a criminal's life equal to the life of a loved one? Naruto responded by pushing Laura. One of his objectives was to alter the heroes. Because they may not have considered such questions, sometimes just words were enough to get them on the correct track. His comments struck Laura like a wrecking ball, exactly as he had wished. Her teachers also taught her that killing criminals was the correct course of action. That was difficult for her because she had led a quiet life. She then collaborated with other heroes and adopted a group attitude. She was reminded of Centurion when she heard his comments. The man had killed numerous individuals and was a source of concern for her teachers. He had nearly murdered her friends and family. She had wanted to kill him in her final moments. She recalled her sorrow, anxiety, and wrath during her last argument with him.
A criminal's life was not equal to that of an innocent person, especially a loved one.
I understand your point of view and appreciate your patience in sharing it. However, your route is equally perilous. Power corrupts. Are you certain you will not fall? I am certain. I have individuals on my side who will question my statements and keep me on course. I don't enjoy hearing constant compliments. I enjoy answering inquiries.
You also enjoy asking questions. Naruto laughed quietly.
Laura smiled at his tone and words. Even though the subject was serious, she felt at ease speaking with him because he was straightforward and exuded a calm atmosphere. I apologize for being a bad host. Do you think you're feeling better now? Naruto shook his hand, indicating that there was no need.
I do feel better. Did you use anything? I projected positive thoughts, and my aura soothes the soul. I also released a fragrance that aids in relaxation. I hope you don't mind the interruption. As he rose up, Naruto said.
Thank you so much for everything. Laura also stood up since she wanted to chat to him about this topic for a longer period of time. It was the first time anyone had actually discussed the consequences and such.
Serenity, you appear to be lonely. Would you like to join me? Naruto gave his offer in an attempt to assist her and take advantage of the circumstance. It was a wonderful place, and she was a strong woman. Laura considered it while she glanced at Naruto. She needed someone to help her fight the evil. She required someone to return the memories to her.
I apologize, but they are still my friends. If you're not making any trouble, I'll assist you. Ha ha ha, I thought I had you figured out. I don't mind at all. Even if you do not join me, I will assist you. I simply want nice people to live happily ever after. Just say my name and I'll come get you. Naruto chuckled and continued in a pleasant tone. He didn't mind being rejected. He wasn't going to be the owner of everything. It didn't matter as long as they were okay and eager to work with him. Naruto vanished with those words, leaving Laura alone with a little figure as a present. Laura smiled as she scooped up the small emperor and felt quite ease handling it. She could feel energy being stored within it. Perhaps I should have followed him. Laura realized she was going to miss the sensation. Laura teleported out of the base and toward the watchtower, shaking her head. She felt excited and dragged from her stump to concentrate on the topic. To be continued.
That's it for this podcast. Thanks for listening to this video. I hope you all did enjoy this part of the story, and if you did, like, share and subscribe for more. And thank you all for helping support, and have a great day.